honored to lead off the first of the 6 panel sessions organized by the Conference Steering Committee. I know that Dean Hubbard and the rest of my Columbia Business School colleagues are also grateful for the opportunity to deliver keynote remarks at this first International Social Enterprise Conference. We hope our efforts are helpful to all of you who are considering how to grow social enterprise in Korea. Dean Hubbard, in his remarks, thanked a number of people for the important role that they have played in this conference, and I want to just very briefly acknowledge Sang-Dal Shim of the KDI, Hunjun Park, and Yoon Suk Baek, who were visiting scholars at Columbia Business School last year. And of course, I want to also acknowledge the 3 people whose generous support made this program possible. That would be Chol Young Lee, Woo Tet Kim, and Soo Kil Oh. Thank you very much. I've organized my remarks in the form of trying to answer 3 questions. First, what does social enterprise mean? Second, how broadly should social enterprise programs be defined? And third, what is the potential of social enterprise to make a meaningful contribution to the solution of society's problems? The meaning of social enterprise. The term social enterprise began showing up with some regularity in the United States in the 1990s. It was the subject of a few academic articles, of some conferences, and other programmatic initiatives in business schools, a smattering of foundation reports, and as the decade went on, an increasing number of newspaper and magazine articles about individuals and organizations that were, quote, making a difference in the world. The term social enterprise was also gaining common usage in some other countries, particularly in Europe, but with a few exceptions, India being one, social enterprise was a largely unknown concept in the rest of the world. Things have changed dramatically in the past decade. Conferences on social enterprise abound. It's almost impossible to keep up with all of the books that are being published on the subject of social enterprise. Leading newspapers employ specialized journalists who report regularly on developments in the field, and social enterprise programs, or like-minded programs with kindred titles, are offered in nearly every major business school in the United States. The rapid growth in business school programming in the past decade reflects 2 related phenomena. First, increasing demand by increasingly idealistic business school students, and second, increases in the number of good jobs that are available to business school graduates with training in social enterprise. Social enterprise is no longer a small part of American business education. At Columbia, for example, about 40% of the MBA students belong to one of the 3 clubs served by the social enterprise program, and enrollments in the social enterprise program's 13 elective courses exceed the school-wide average in enrollments. While the U.S. remains the center of the movement, it has become a truly international phenomenon. Within Asia, social enterprise is well developed in India, spreading like wildfire in China, and is becoming a part of business education and business practice in Korea. Witness this conference, witness the beginnings of courses and programs at some of Korea's leading business schools, witness the growth of socially responsible investing, of corporate foundations, and the social entrepreneurship movement. I'll discuss the reasons behind the growth in social enterprise when I turn to its potential to solve societal problems. Now I want to get to the task at hand, which is to offer a definition of social enterprise. To me, social enterprise means, simply put, the application of business skills or tools or methods, if you prefer, to the solution of social problems. I include environmental problems within social problems because global warming is likely to be our ultimate social problem if we continue to do business in the future as we have in the past. This is a pragmatic definition, to be sure. I prefer it to creating social value, which is commonly used as a definition of social enterprise, because solving problems is easier to understand than creating value. Also, value is a more contentious concept within business schools, particularly when social enterprise is celebrated as a higher calling than private enterprise, because private enterprise is merely focused on making money. New programs are hard enough to initiate without insulting the mainstream of business educators. Defining social enterprise as the application of business skills to the solution of social problems facilitates programmatic initiative. It is hard for faculty members, even for the most devout believers in the market's invisible hand, to oppose using the skills they teach to solve social problems. Social enterprise means business, and social enterprise programs need to rest comfortably within business schools. How broadly should social enterprise be defined? A second and in some ways more important issue to be considered in developing social enterprise programs revolves around whether they are defined narrowly or broadly. Put somewhat differently, what are the institutional advantages from which business school graduates can practice social enterprise? Should training focus on developing socially responsible business leaders, or effective managers of nonprofit or non-governmental organizations, or successful social entrepreneurs, or innovative government officials? One, some, or all of the above. Corporations. With the exception of one issue discussed below, it is difficult to argue, at least to me, that a social enterprise program in a business school should not focus on training students to be socially responsible in the conduct of their business careers. All the more so in a nation like Korea, where major corporations play such an influential role in society. Consider for a moment the ways that business leaders, potentially at least, are able to use their skills to better society. They can be ethical leaders, thereby raising the bar of corporate performance beyond minimal legal requirements. They can integrate social responsibility into their main business lines and thereby sustain social gains and profit at the same time. They can allocate corporate funds to needy charities or create corporate foundations to serve this purpose. They can return their fortunes to society by becoming private philanthropists. They can volunteer their time and expertise by serving on nonprofit boards or public commissions. They can initiate volunteer programs for the employees of their firms. They can be socially responsible investors. The list goes on and on and on. Given the high level of human and financial resources within society's major corporations, their senior executives have great potential, and I underscore the word potential, to make major contributions to society beyond those that accrue from creating jobs and paying taxes. But the word potential is underscored. Big businesses are often highly inertial, often capable of dulling even the most idealistic, innovative, and well-trained business school graduates. Nonprofit organizations. Earlier I said that the field of social enterprise was growing rapidly. In the United States, at least, a major reason for this is the explosive growth of the nonprofit sector, which for the past 2 decades has grown twice as fast as the governmental sector and half again as fast as the private sector. Good data on the growth of nonprofit or non-governmental organizations internationally is hard to come by, but my sense is that the nonprofit sector is growing relatively rapidly in many nations, China second to none. In Korea, I believe it is an emerging sector that will continue to grow in prominence in the years ahead. The growth of the nonprofit sector suggests that society's stake in its performance is also growing. While I disagree with the popular view that businesses are well managed because they are subject to the discipline of the market, and the corollary that nonprofits are poorly managed because they are not subject to the discipline of the market, it is still true that many nonprofit organizations are very poorly managed. And while there are important differences in the way businesses and nonprofits operate, most of the skills taught in business school are readily applicable to the management of nonprofit organizations. This is certainly true of the soft side of business education, fields like leadership, management, strategy, negotiations, and marketing, but operations, accounting, performance evaluation, and finance are also relevant to nonprofit management. Nonprofit managers who are able to adapt the trainings of business school to their institutions can have a major impact, if only from using their rapidly growing resources more efficiently. Even a modest 10% productivity gain in the nonprofit sector, and I'm firmly convinced there is more to be had than 10%, could have a major impact on social welfare by freeing up resources for other worthwhile purposes and/or improving the volume and quality of services provided by the nonprofit sector. Social entrepreneurship. My sense is that this facet of social enterprise currently is attracting as much, if not more, interest than corporate social responsibility or nonprofit management. The social payoffs of using energy-efficient light bulbs in business establishments, or achieving a 10% productivity gain in a nonprofit organization, are not nearly as exciting as founding a new organization with a new way of attacking an enduring social problem. The founders of such organizations, call them social entrepreneurs, face few of the startup problems that would-be innovators in big business, nonprofit, and government agencies face. While social entrepreneurs may start nonprofit organizations as well as firms, it is the latter that capture the most attention, because revenues derived from sales are thought to be more sustainable than revenues derived from the beneficence of others. I think there is considerable evidence that this is a faulty assumption, but be that as it may, it is clear that the tools of entrepreneurship, a mainstay of business education, are readily applicable to the tasks facing social entrepreneurs. The factor more than any other that clouds the potential of social entrepreneurs is the difficulty of bringing the organizations they found to scale, to sustainable scale. The inability to attract sufficient resources converts many would-be social entrepreneurs into salaried employees of larger organizations and many successful founders into failed developers. One of the enduring issues in the field of social enterprise is that the organizations with the resources to make things happen, major corporations, major nonprofits, major government agencies, tend to resist change, while the entrepreneurial organizations that embrace new ideas and better ways of doing business often die on the vine because of the lack of resources. Fortunately, as my Columbia Business School colleagues Anthony Bug Levine and Bruce Usher, and I know others of our guests will discuss, There are new developments in the field, new institutions and new ways of using the market that promise to bring resources, financial and human, to promising startups. Government agencies. For many people, the idea that social enterprise might play a role in government is oxymoronic. Witness the long line of outstanding people who have been recruited by public officials to make government more efficient or accountable, or in a word, more businesslike. Why, one might ask, should any attention be paid to training business school students for careers or stints in the public service? The answer is resources, resources, and resources. If any institution has the financial, human, and legal resources required to make fundamental changes in society, it remains government. If, as I'll argue in conclusion, the energy crisis is providing clean energy businesses with a huge opportunity to make money and clean up the environment at the same time, it is worth remembering that this opportunity will not come to pass without government intervention, whether in the form of subsidies or establishing the price of carbon emissions. As you might expect from my review of the 4 vantages from which social enterprise can be practiced, we have defined the field broadly at Columbia Business School. But let me say that the decision to define the field broadly and to train our students in a variety of ways of practicing social enterprise was reached in a Columbia-specific context. It would have been hard to do otherwise. Applicants to Columbia Business School are a diverse group with various career ambitions. The social enterprise program, as Dean Hubbard mentioned, morphed out of an earlier and long-standing program that trained business school students seeking careers in the public and nonprofit sector. We continued to serve that group of students while we broadened our mission to include training socially responsible business leaders and social entrepreneurs. This broad focus also meshed nicely with a larger mission of the school, which is to train students for a lifetime rather than their first jobs. Many of the school's alumni begin their careers in business, but eventually move to public and nonprofit positions later in their careers. And many of those who stay in business throughout their careers become philanthropists or serve on nonprofit boards. In other words, those of you who are responsible for thinking through how social enterprise might be developed in Korea need to consider the extent to which the Columbia model is appropriate to Korea, because our contexts, our cultures, if you will, are different. This is an issue I'll return to shortly and on which I'm sure we'll discuss in this panel and throughout the conference. Finally, let me address the potential of social enterprise. Is social enterprise a fad, one of those passing fancies in business education like quality circles or management by objective, or does it have staying power? I believe it has staying power, or I would not have devoted so much of my professional life to the social enterprise movement. The forces that have propelled the growth of the movement in the United States and internationally are not likely to disappear, including the threat that global warming poses to our environment, and thus our established ways of doing things, the persistence of social ills like poverty, disease, and a wide variety of discriminations, and finally the tidal force of globalization that spreads good ideas and bad, and new institutions around the world. I'm concerned, as I'm sure we all are, about the effects of the world financial crisis on the social enterprise movement. It will be a setback to the movement if we revert to a dog-eat-dog, beggar-thy-neighbor approach. We can't let social enterprise be considered a luxury only to be practiced in good times. If anything, the social enterprise movement is more important in times like these. While social enterprise remains a relatively young social movement in the United States, I'm convinced it has the potential to help solve a wide range of social and environmental problems. I'm quite confident the same potential exists in Korea. But as I've tried to emphasize throughout my remarks, apparent differences in our cultures, our institutions, and our business schools undoubtedly argue for the consideration of somewhat different approaches than the Columbia Business School model. That said, I don't want to close by caving in entirely to cultural relativism. Here are a few words of advice that perhaps we'll have a chance to discuss on our panels. First, keeping in mind that the meaning of social enterprise, at least as I have defined it as the application of business skills to the solution of social problems, dictates that business schools play a central role in its development as a social movement. In light of this, it is important to develop programs that fit easily within the established orders of business schools. Second, I think it is useful to think of social enterprise as an umbrella, broad enough to cover a range of organizational forms and individual desires. There is, to use what is probably an ill-suited American adage, more than one way to skin a cat. There are many ways graduates of business schools can make the world a better place. However, my sense is that your effort to develop the field of social enterprise would be remiss if it did not include preparing students to be socially responsible business leaders, though some programmatic activities should also focus on social entrepreneurship and, in my view, even public service. In this connection, I urge you to listen carefully to my colleague Sandra Navali, who will be addressing the range of curricular and extracurricular activities that might be developed within business schools to attract students and faculty to social enterprise. Third, I take note of the fact that the Korea Development Institute is a co-sponsor of this conference. This adds an important voice to those who otherwise would be responsible for moving the agenda further, including university presidents, business school deans, interested faculty members, corporate leaders, and foundation officials. I would think the time is right, assuming the conference reaches a degree of consensus, for a concerted effort that would bring together all of the stakeholders in a strategic planning process that would identify where you are in the social enterprise movement, where you want to go with the social enterprise movement, and what it will take to get you where you want to go. My hope is that this conference is an important step in that process. Thank you very much.